Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. And today we have someone who has given her entire life to serving our community. You've got to love her, Peggy Bradford from Mac Incorporated. Welcome, Peggy.
Oh, thank you. I am so thrilled to be here to talk with you about Mac. As you say, it's been my life.
Well, you're kind of like the Mother Teresa of the senior community in Salisbury. But there's some troubling news for me. You're retiring after a long time.
Yep. Well, for everything, there's a time, and I think now is probably a good time for me to retire. You don't so much retire from something, you retire to something. So I'm hoping this will be a good transition.
How many years were you at Mac?
37 years.
37 years. Now, describe for me what Mac was like when you arrived. I know what it's like now, but I can only imagine what it was like when you arrived 37 years ago. What was Mac then?
My first day was October 1, 1979. Mac was a very small agency, I think probably 7 or 8 employees, housed in the second floor of the old Pine Bluff Tuberculosis Hospital. Mac was trying to get this new program going called Senior Centers, where a meal was available, was also working with volunteers in nursing homes. And that was pretty much what Mac did back then.
And how did it grow?
Oh, as I reflect back, it is so different now than years ago. And here's one little bit that will give you an idea of how things changed. First few years I worked there, we had barely heard about Meals on Wheels. And we might have been serving 1,000 a year over 4 counties because Mac serves the 4-county area. This year, we'll probably serve 78,000 meals.
Wow.
And could serve more if the funds were available. So Mac has really grown. It's tried to adapt to the needs of the growing population of older persons, you know. The baby boomers have boomed.
Right, they did boom, right. Now, when you joined Mac, were you the director then, or how did you join Mac?
Oh, well, it's really interesting. When I was in graduate school, and I was home for the summer, my mother was teaching art classes at this new senior program in Berlin. And she said, oh, why don't you come and volunteer with me? And I did, because I was in a nursing program. So I volunteered and took blood pressures and that type of thing. And when I finished graduate school, I decided I really wanted to live on the Eastern Shore, not so much in the city of Baltimore. I moved back, and eventually I started working at Shore Up, the community action agency. And Shore Up was a subcontractor of Mac. And from there, I ended up at Mac as the director.
Interesting. So Mac was out at Pine Bluff for a long time, and then where did it go?
In 2009, after 4 or 5 years of putting together a really diverse package of funding and facing lots of challenges, Mac opened the doors of its new Salisbury Wicomico Senior Center right off Snow Hill Road behind the Holly Center. We were so delighted to have been able to develop what we think is a state-of-the-art facility for older persons. People with all levels of abilities are welcome, and there's something for everybody in that facility.
And what a beautiful facility it is.
And it just keeps growing. Last August, we opened up a new wing, the Purdue Family Education Center, and that center has probably brought in another 300 to 500 people to the facility on a regular basis who are taking a variety of classes. Many people, retired people, are teaching classes for retired people. And then we have several new health classes that we're offering to the community here, as well as throughout the state.
It's such a hub of activity when you go out there.
Indeed. Probably the best kept secret we have is our gym and wellness center. We designed a gym for people age 50 plus.
So I can go.
You might barely may make the eligibility criteria, but we'll sneak you in, Greg. The great thing about this gym is the equipment is especially designed for people with a variety of abilities. So if you have problems with arthritis in your joints, walking, shoulders, whatever, there's a bike, especially for you, called a New Step. It allows you to do exercise without putting stress on your joints. We have a treadmill, unlike any you've ever seen. It's an anti-gravity treadmill.
Wow.
It's one that the astronauts use to train on, and this treadmill will reduce your body weight by 80%. So you can exercise if you're, say, post a knee or hip replacement. Many people who have Parkinson's disease use the treadmill because it has cameras where they can see their gait. People who may be training for a race will come in and use it, and you'll often see them on professional teams. There's very few of those on the shore, but there's one at MAC.
Now, when you all were going to build that building, I was one of the people that was like, they don't need anything that big and fancy. They'll never be able to fill that thing. There's not enough need for that. But I was sure wrong about that.
You may have been wrong, but you really helped us promote it, and for that I will be ever grateful. You may think of this as being one of those build it and they will come kind of phenomenons, but indeed I think where we were was not reflective of the value that the community placed on its older population. It was a building that didn't even meet building code.
Right.
We're now in a facility that says we value older persons and we want to offer a variety of services for them. Greatest untapped resource in this community are our retirees. They have so much to offer and so much to give, and our facility enables them to do that. One of the greatest things I think we've done since we've been there is to greatly expand the programs that we offer breast cancer and GYN survivors. If you go to the building, you ride around, you might accidentally think that you're in a community garden.
Yeah.
Because we have a huge garden there, especially designed for our cancer survivors. It's has a variety of raised beds or lower beds, depending upon your ability. And we work very closely with the Susan G. Komen Foundation for the Cure to work with people after they've been through all the traditional treatment modes and still need a little extra. So we get into gardening, organic gardening, cooking up what they grow because the survivors have their own plots. They plant it, they tend it, they harvest it, and then we have cook-ups. We have classes like Tai Chi, yoga, enhanced fitness, and it's made such a tremendous difference in people's life and ability to return to normal function.
Interesting. I know with my own mom, my mom's 79, and she's got her little circle of friends, and their day is spent going to lunch and going grocery shopping, and they do some volunteering at some places. And I see her friends are passing away, and I know she's going to run out of friends at some point. And she keeps asking questions to me about, senior centers and what goes on there. She's a little bit confused. What would you tell someone who doesn't really know about a senior center? Because I think they might be kind of put off by the idea it's a senior center, but it's way more than that.
Well, indeed it is. I remember my grandmother, when she was 90, told me she didn't want to go be with all those old people.
Exactly. You hear that all the time.
But that's a misconception.
Yeah.
I would say, number one, give it a try. Because I said there's something for everyone. If we have people who attend or who may be very frail, need assistive devices to get around. We have people like you and I who are really high functioning and enjoy the classes, enjoy the exercise programs, enjoy volunteering. But the one thing that they all have in common is a shared sense of fellowship. Uh, we're almost at the point I said we're going to have two seatings for our noontime meal. Our dining room holds about 70 people, and some days it's almost standing room only.
Right.
We have more than double the number of people who come in because, as you say, sharing a meal with someone when you live alone is important. It's a way to connect. And I find it very heartening to see people of diverse backgrounds, diverse abilities to sit down together and connect. So I would tell your mom, hey, give it a try.
You have so many classes out there. Tell me about some of the classes that they have.
Well, we've been very fortunate over the past 2 or 3 years to get several national competitive grants for health-related classes. Some of the most popular and certainly the most effective and meaningful for our community include chronic disease self-management, cancer thriving and surviving, diabetes self-management, pain management, Tai Chi, enhanced fitness, yoga. We have pump and tone classes
Wow.
in the gym. There's a whole list. Our chronic disease self-management classes have really hit a niche, not only in this community, but throughout the state, because they're classes that were developed by Stanford University in California, proven to be very effective in empowering people to take charge of their own health. And sort of a side effect of that is reduction in number of hospitalizations, days of hospitalizations, and emergency room visits, which fits really well with the way hospitals are operating today. Because today it's the hospital's intent to treat people in the community, keep them out of the hospital, or reduce their readmission or use of the emergency room. So
Right.
we've formed partnerships with Peninsula Regional Medical Center, the University Health Systems, all their hospitals, Johns Hopkins hospitals, doing these classes all over the state now. The latest grant we just received addresses another critical issue that impacts older people, and that's falls. If an older person has a very serious fall, it can lead to death. Often a person's had a very serious fall, if you're over the age 70, within a year and a half. You may not be here. So the grant that we just received is called Stepping On. It's a falls prevention grant and education. It uses your pharmacist to look at your medications, safety about your house, how you can make your house more safer, just some common sense things you can do, exercises, and that's another program that's been very effective in reducing falls. So we're just getting ready to launch that one across the state.
Yeah, falls are scary. I wouldn't even let my mom vacuum anymore because I worry about her falling.
I think if you ask older people what are their greatest concerns, and often you'll hear, I'm afraid I'll fall and won't be able to live independently.
Yeah.
You know, that may be followed by, I'm afraid I won't have enough money
Right.
to live, and that's where you can come see us at MAC.
Right, and you counsel people on those issues.
Indeed, we have a program known as a Maryland Access Point, where we do what we call options counseling, and we'll sit down with you and see what kinds of programs or services you might be eligible for, connect you with those services. And if there's anything that we connect you with, we will do it. Most people don't know about that. We do health insurance counseling, soon be time for Medicare Part D enrollment for prescription drugs. The only way you can enroll in that program is via the internet. And for many older people, they don't have access to the internet or can negotiate it. We can do that for them. Another great thing at MAC that nobody knows about is the tremendous partnership we have with the Bay Area Center for Independent Living.
Right.
There is a showroom of assistive technology devices. So if I have problems with arthritis and I can't open a can or I can't peel vegetables, I can go to that showroom and I'll be assessed. And there are a variety of gadgets they'll show me how to use. They will lend me, and I'll see if that works for me. And that is a tremendous asset for this community. And that's available to any people, any age.
Wow, that really would be a great asset.
Uh, MAC is designated as the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which means anybody who walks in, if we can't hook them up with a resource, we will do a warm handoff to the Center for Independent Living, and they'll work with them. So, it's sort of a no wrong door system. Just come through that front door, and we'll do the best we can to meet your identified needs.
It must be hard because there must be a line there where you want to respect that someone wants to live independently, but they probably shouldn't.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with
Like
that.
with my mom and the vacuum, you know.
You have to respect people have the right to make the wrong choices. Where we come in, we show them the choices they have that they may not have considered. And that's what we can do. You have this option, and this option, and maybe we can plug this service in that will enable you to live independently longer.
Meals on Wheels is just the most amazing thing ever.
It is.
Something as simple as that. I know it's complicated, but simple in theory.
More than a meal.
Yeah.
And I have to give a shout out to United Way of the Lower Eastern Shore. Biggest supporter of our
United
Meals
Way
on Wheels
loves
program.
Meals on Wheels, yeah.
It's mutual love.
Yeah.
Meals on Wheels takes a meal to a homebound older person. And for most of the people, the only individual they see that day is the person who walks through the door with a meal. So you get a bond that forms between the person delivering the meal and the recipient. You also get a safety check.
Right.
And there has been more than once when we've walked through that door, when we've seen that person needed attention. So it may be calling a relative, maybe calling physician, maybe calling the ambulance. And in some cases, we found people who've passed away. I can give you probably one of the greatest stories that happened, but we had a delivery person going to a home. This was several years ago. Smelled smoke.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't get the person to come to the door. Went in the house, went to the bedroom, found the older person in the bedroom, pulled them out of the burning home. Now that's more than a meal.
That's more than a meal. Yeah. Wow. And how many homes were you all going to every day?
Oh my gosh. It depends on which day. We don't do 5 days a week anymore just because of funding. But on average day, we'll probably serve 250 people. Over the course of a week, we'll serve well over 700 different people.
Right, and they sure look forward to it.
Indeed. And the meals are meals that are specially designed for people over the age of 65 to meet their dietary requirements. We found that many people will take that meal and divide it into 2 meals because it may be the only nutritious meal they get for a day. We've started sending out some shelf-stable food, so they'll have something in case of an emergency, a weather-related emergency. We sometimes supplement with frozen meals. There are a variety of things that we've been trying. When the winter comes, we'll start sending out, along with the meals, what we call a soup meal, a little extra something that's available later in the day or over the weekend, because we can't deliver on weekends.
So with our seniors here locally, do we have unique problems, or are we typical of the whole country?
Well, here on the Eastern Shore, we have a higher percentage of older people in our population.
Right.
Much higher than the state average. A couple of counties on the shore, Worcester County, Kent County, in Talbot County have very, very high concentrations of older people. We're saying probably going to be a third of the population will be over the age of 65 in the next few years. And when you have a national average around 12%, that's huge because it brings needs with them. What's unique to us is what I would call a shortage of caregivers. Probably heard our friend Memo Derricker at Beacon talk about
the Gray Shore.
The Gray Shore.
Yeah.
And the brain drain.
Right.
So when you have young people leave the shore to find a job elsewhere, what you're losing is a potential family caregiver.
Right.
We also have a big in-migration of older people from other areas of the state. So they may have bought a retirement home here many years ago, now decided to retire, or just said, let's move to the shore. Things are cheaper there. I mean, that's a common, sometimes a misconception. Cheaper, more easygoing. And so they come, and they have left behind their support system and family resources and doctors. So that presents a real challenge for folks like Mac when we get called for services, because what we try to do first thing is see how we can use the community or the family to help them, and they're not here.
So there is some unique stuff there. That's interesting. I knew the population was slightly higher, but I didn't know it was that much higher.
Very much higher.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to plug the services in is always a challenge.
Now, you get funding from all kinds of sources, but it's always in jeopardy because you're tapping so many different funding wells.
Always. I mean,
and I know that's your big concern where you probably lose sleep all the time. But tell me where your funding comes from.
Well, this is interesting. Over the years, initially, when I first started at MAC, probably 90% of our funding came through federal sources, maybe 10% through state. Now it's more like third federal, maybe a third state, and the other third is local funds, including donations.
Right.
We say at MAC, if there's a rock, turn it over. There might be $1 under it. Because if you're in a nonprofit organization, you're perpetually raising funds.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here in the state of Maryland, what we've seen over the last 3 years is the way funding is being distributed is the funds leaving the Eastern Shore, going to the metropolitan areas. They use a variety of different formulas to distribute funding. So you have no new money coming through the state government, and you have a formula that keeps redistributing the same money. So our piece of the pie is getting smaller, smaller, smaller. So we've been turning to the community, asking them to help us fill our plates.
So if I'm in the community and I want to help MAC, how do I do that?
We're happy to have any kind of help you have.
Just bring your checkbook. No, I know it's more than that.
No. Some people have a passion for a specific cause. So it may be Meals on Wheels. It may be caregiving. Caregiving is and caregiver support is a big part of what we do. Or you may want to support our health insurance counseling program or older worker program, or just say, use my donation where it's most needed. But we want to give our donors an option to designate. We also want to use your talents. So if you want to volunteer, come see us. We can put you to work.
And you have lots of creative, fun fundraisers. The run thing you do is in the spring.
We do
it's a fun little event.
St. Patty's Day run. It's an amazing event because it's a group of volunteers who created the event, who continue to provide the impetus to make it happen. So I want everybody to start thinking for next St. Patty's Day. You don't have to run, you can walk. It's a run walk.
Right.
And it always ends with a big party at the Salisbury Elks.
Right.
And that's just one of many, many fundraisers we're doing. We're just winding down now a fundraiser for Meals on Wheels to help plug the gap that existed with the loss of some of those state and federal funds.
I remember a couple of years ago the St. Patrick's Day run. It had been a miserable winter, and it was one of those winters that wouldn't let go. And the day of the event, it broke out. And it was like 62 degrees, and it was a great event at the Elks because the weather finally, it was like the first nice day of the year.
That was our blessing from
Right,
above,
right.
because that is a very much weather-related event, and that's another event where we use a lot of volunteers.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to retire.
It's coming very soon.
What next for Peggy Bradford?
Well, Greg, when you've spent your whole life doing something that's provided you with a lot of purpose and meaning, you don't retire from something, you retire to something. So I've decided, certainly I'm going to free up a little more of my time for leisure. I have stacks and stacks of books that I've bought over the years that I've never had a chance to read. Well, I'm going to read some of them now.
Good.
I'll do some more with my hobbies. I like very much showing my dog and working with the local kennel club. Love boating, so
Oh, good.
boating, golfing. I might actually have time for some of that, but I can guarantee you there's going to be involvement with nonprofit organizations in the community. I like to volunteer my time to help emerging or new nonprofits. I enjoy writing grants, and I'm very much into advocacy. So you may well see me around Annapolis come the next session because I think it's been way, way too long since the state really focused on this huge population that we have that's growing. We just sort of ignored it, shoved it aside, and
Well, I know when Governor Hogan came and there was a threat to Meals on Wheels there for about a minute, and Bob Culver actually stepped up and offered some money. I guess it worked itself out, but yeah, I guess it's always a threat.
there's always a threat when there's not new money
Yeah.
and there's competition for resources. I hate to say it, the shore often loses. We don't have the number of delegates, senators that sit in that state house who make the votes on the budget.
And Norm Conway was so instrumental in your new building, I know.
Norm Conway was our champion.
Yeah.
Lowell Stolfus was a champion, but those folks are gone, so we're grooming new champions.
Right.
It takes a while.
I think we might see more of you because I think maybe you've been bogged down at MAC and now you can get out and do stuff with some new groups.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Is there going to be like a Peggy ban at the building? Are they going to allow you to come back in and ask questions, or are they going to say no? You need,
I think the door's always going to be open. In fact,
It's going to be hard to let go.
I've been asked by my board of directors to stay on a consultant basis for 6 months or so.
Excellent.
And I think they know they can always call me because I'm going to be watching. It's kind of like raising a child, and your child is grown. Maybe your daughter is getting
Right.
ready to
You
marry,
got to let them go.
but you just don't want to let them go to anyone. You want to follow that and see what's going on.
But think about that. In 1979, when you arrived over there off Riverside Drive, did you ever imagine that you'd have a facility and an impact in the community that you have now?
Never, never. I have been a fortunate person to be surrounded by a committed staff, passionate people who buy into the agency's mission, volunteer board that's been phenomenal, and a community of elected officials and caring people sort of wrap their arms around our agency. And as the political scene changed, it didn't matter which political party, people understood the value of older people and treating them with dignity, helping them to stay as independent as possible.
Well, you certainly helped me learn a lot in those regards. You made me think about these issues that I never thought about. So I think
Good.
you've done that with lots of people and helped so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been rewarding for me.
She's Peggy Bradford. She's retiring as the executive director of MAC, and she has this is a woman who every day of her life has served the public and made people's lives better, and we really appreciate having her here today.
Well, look out for me. I'll still be around.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on Pack 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.